Algeria. Algeria is a country in the Maghreb region of North Africa. The capital and most populous city are Algiers, located in the far north of the country on the Mediterranean coast. With an area of 2,381,741 square kilometers, 919,595 square miles, Algeria is the 10th largest country in the world and the largest in the African Union and Arab world. With an estimated population of over 42 million, it is among the 10 most populous states in Africa. Algeria is bordered to the northeast by Tunisia, to the east by Libya, to the west by Morocco, to the southwest by the Western Saharan territory, Mauritania, and Mali, to the southeast by Niger, and to the north by the Mediterranean Sea. It is a semi-presidential republic consisting of 48 provinces and 1,541 communes, counties. Pre-1962 Algeria has known many empires and dynasties, including ancient Numidians, Phoenicians, Carthaginians, Romans, Vandals, Byzantines, Umayyads, Abbasids, Idrisid, Aghlabid, Rustamid, Fatimids, Zirid, Hammadids, Almoravids, Almohads, Zayanids, Spaniards, Ottomans and, finally, the French colonial empire. Algeria is a regional and middle power. It has the highest human development index of all non-island African countries and one of the largest economies on the continent, based largely on energy exports. Algeria has the 16th largest oil reserves in the world and the second largest in Africa, while it has the 9th largest reserves of natural gas. Sonatrach, the national oil company, is the largest company in Africa, supplying large amounts of natural gas to Europe. Algeria has one of the largest militaries in Africa and the largest defense budget. It is a member of the African Union, the Arab League, OPEC, the United Nations, and the Arab Maghreb Union, of which it is a founding member. History of Algeria. In the region of Ain Hannak, Sahida province, early remnants 200,000 BC of hominid occupation in North Africa were found. Neanderthal toolmakers produced hand axes in the Levalloisian and Mousterian styles 43,000 BC, similar to those in the Levant. Algeria was the site of the highest state of development of Middle Paleolithic flake tool techniques. Tools of this era, starting about 30,000 BC, are called Aterian, after the archaeological site of Bir el Ader, south of Tebessa. The earliest blade industries in North Africa are called Iberomaurusian, located mainly in the Oran region. This industry appears to have spread throughout the coastal regions of the Maghreb between 15,000 and 10,000 BC. Neolithic civilization, animal domestication and agriculture developed in the Saharan and Mediterranean Maghreb perhaps as early as 11,000 BC or as late as between 6,000 and 2,000 BC. This life, richly depicted in the Tassili Niger paintings, predominated in Algeria until the classical period. The mixture of peoples of North Africa coalesced eventually into a distinct native population that came to be called Berbers, who are the indigenous peoples of northern Africa. Ancient Roman ruins of Timgaden, the street leading to the local Arch of Trajan from their principal center of power at Carthage, the Carthaginians expanded and established small settlements along the North African coast. By 600 BC, a Phoenician presence existed at Tipasa east of Shershel, Hippo Regius, modern Annaba, and Rusicade, modern Skikda. These settlements served as market towns as well as anchorages. As Carthaginian power grew, its impact on the indigenous population increased dramatically. Berber civilization was already at a stage in which agriculture, manufacturing, trade, and political organization supported several states. Trade links between Carthage and the Berbers in the interior grew, but territorial expansion also resulted in the enslavement or military recruitment of some Berbers and in the extraction of tribute from others. By the early 4th century BC, Berbers formed the single largest element of the Carthaginian army. In the Revolt of the Mercenaries, Berber soldiers rebelled from 241 to 238 BC after being unpaid following the defeat of Carthage in the First Punic War. They succeeded in obtaining control of much of Carthage's North African territory, and they minted coins bearing the name Libyan, used in Greek to describe natives of North Africa. The Carthaginian state declined because of successive defeats by the Romans in the Punic Wars. In 146 BC the city of Carthage was destroyed. As Carthaginian power waned, the influence of Berber leaders in the hinterland grew. By the 2nd century BC, several large but loosely administered Berber kingdoms had emerged. Two of them were established in Numidia, behind the coastal areas controlled by Carthage. West of Numidia lay Mauritania, which extended across the Moulouya River in modern-day Morocco to the Atlantic Ocean. The high point of Berber civilization, unequaled until the coming of the Almohads and Almoravids more than a millennium later, was reached during the reign of Massinissa in the 2nd century BC. After Massinissa's death in 148 BC, the Berber kingdoms were divided and reunited several times. Massinissa's line survived until 24 AD when the remaining Berber territory was annexed to the Roman Empire. For several centuries Algeria was ruled by the Romans, who founded many colonies in the region. Like the rest of North Africa, Algeria was one of the breadbaskets of the empire, exporting cereals and other agricultural products. Saint Augustine was the bishop of Hippo Regius, modern-day Algeria, located in the Roman province of Africa. The Germanic Vandals of Gaiseric moved into North Africa in 429, and by 435 controlled coastal Numidia. They did not make any significant settlement on the land, as they were harassed by local tribes. In fact, by the time the Byzantines arrived Leptis Magna was abandoned and the Masellata region was occupied by the indigenous Laguatan who had been busy facilitating an Amazigh political, military and cultural revival. The first 3 decades of independence 1962 to 1991 in Algeria. The number of European Pied Noirs who fled Algeria totaled more than 900,000 between 1962 and 1964. The exodus to mainland France accelerated after the Oran massacre of 1962, in which hundreds of militants entered European sections of the city, and began attacking civilians. Algeria's first president was the Front de Libération Nationale (FLN) leader Ahmed Ben Bella. Morocco's claim to portions of western Algeria led to the Sand War in 1963. Ben Bella was overthrown in 1965 by Houari Boumediene, his former ally, and defense minister. Under Ben Bella, the government had become increasingly socialist and authoritarian. Boumediene continued this trend. But he relied much more on the army for his support and reduced the sole legal party to a symbolic role. He collectivized agriculture and launched a massive industrialization drive. Oil extraction facilities were nationalized. This was especially beneficial to the leadership after the international 1973 oil crisis. In the 1960s and 1970s under President Houari Boumediene, Algeria pursued a program of industrialization within a state-controlled socialist economy. Boumediene's successor, Chadli Benjedid, introduced some liberal economic reforms. He promoted a policy of Arabization in Algerian society and public life. Teachers of Arabic, brought in from other Muslim countries, spread conventional Islamic thought in schools and sowed the seeds of a return to Orthodox Islam. The Algerian economy became increasingly dependent on oil, leading to hardship when the price collapsed during the 1980s oil glut. The economic recession caused by the crash in world oil prices resulted in Algerian social unrest during the 1980s. By the end of the decade, Benjedid introduced a multi-party system. Political parties developed, such as the Islamic Salvation Front, FIS, a broad coalition of Muslim groups. Civil War 1991–2002 and aftermath in Algeria. In December 1991 the Islamic Salvation Front dominated the first of 2 rounds of legislative elections. Fearing the election of an Islamist government, the authorities intervened on the 11th of January 1992, cancelling the elections. Benjedid resigned and a High Council of State was installed to act as the presidency. It banned the FIS, triggering a civil insurgency between the front's armed wing, the Armed Islamic Group, and the National Armed Forces, in which more than 100,000 people are thought to have died. The Islamist militants conducted a violent campaign of civilian massacres. At several points in the conflict, the situation in Algeria became a point of international concern, most notably during the crisis surrounding Air France Flight 8969, a hijacking perpetrated by the Armed Islamic Group. The Armed Islamic Group declared a ceasefire in October 1997. Algeria held elections in 1999, considered biased by international observers and most opposition groups, which were won by President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. He worked to restore political stability to the country and announced a civil concord initiative, approved in a referendum, under which many political prisoners were pardoned, and several thousand members of armed groups were granted exemption from prosecution under a limited amnesty, in force until 13 January 2000. The ICE disbanded and levels of insurgent violence fell rapidly. The group Salafista pour la Prédication et le Combat (GSPC), a splinter group of the armed Islamic group, continued a terrorist campaign against the government. Bouteflika was re-elected in the April 2004 presidential election after campaigning on a program of national reconciliation. The program comprised economic, institutional, political and social reform to modernize the country, raise living standards, and tackle the causes of alienation. It also included a second amnesty initiative, the Charter for Peace and National Reconciliation, which was approved in a referendum in September 2005. It offered amnesty to most guerrillas and government security forces. In November 2008, the Algerian constitution was amended following a vote in parliament, removing the two-term limit on presidential incumbents. This change enabled Bouteflika to stand for re-election in the 2009 presidential elections, and he was re-elected in April 2009. During his election campaign and following his re-election, Bouteflika promised to extend the program of national reconciliation and a $150 billion spending program to create 3 million new jobs, the construction of 1 million new housing units, and to continue public sector and infrastructure modernization programs. A continuing series of protests throughout the country started on 28 December 2010, inspired by similar protests across the Middle East and North Africa. On 24 February 2011, the government lifted Algeria's 19-year-old state of emergency. The government enacted legislation dealing with political parties, the electoral code, and the representation of women in elected bodies. In April 2011, Bouteflika promised further constitutional and political reform. However, elections are routinely criticized by opposition groups as unfair, and international human rights groups say that media censorship and harassment of political opponents continue. On 2 April 2019, Bouteflika resigned from the president. Geography of Algeria. Since the 2011 breakup of Sudan, Algeria has been the largest country in Africa and the Mediterranean basin. Its southern part includes a significant portion of the Sahara. To the north, the Tel Atlas form with the Saharan Atlas, further south, two parallel sets of reliefs in approaching eastbound, and between which are inserted vast plains and highlands. Both atlas tend to merge in eastern Algeria. The vast mountain ranges of Ars and Nememcha occupy entire northeastern Algeria and are delineated by the Tunisian border. The highest point is Mount Tahat, 3,003 meters or 9,852 feet. Algeria lies mostly between latitudes 19 degrees and 37 degrees north, a small area is north of 37 degrees north and south of 19 degrees north, and longitudes 9 degrees west and 12 degrees east. Most of the coastal area is hilly, sometimes even mountainous, and there are a few natural harbors. The area from the coast to the Tel Atlas is fertile. South of the Tel Atlas is a steppe landscape ending with the Saharan Atlas. Farther south, there is the Sahara Desert. The Hagar Mountains, also known as the Hagar, are a highland region in central Sahara, southern Algeria. They have located about 1,500 kilometers (932 miles) south of the capital, Algiers, and just east of Tamanghasset. Algiers, Oran, Constantine, and Annaba are Algeria's main cities. Climate and hydrology. In this region, midday desert temperatures can be hot year-round. After sunset, however, the clear, dry air permits rapid loss of heat, and the nights are cool to chilly. Enormous daily ranges in temperature are recorded. Rainfall is fairly plentiful along the coastal part of the Tel Atlas, ranging from 400 to 670 millimeters (15.7 to 26.4 in) annually, the amount of precipitation increasing from west to east. Precipitation is heaviest in the northern part of eastern Algeria, where it reaches as much as 1,000 millimeters (39.4 in) some years. Further inland, the rainfall is less plentiful. Algeria also has ERGS, or sand dunes, between mountains. Among these, in the summertime when winds are heavy and gusty, temperatures can go up to 43.3 degrees Celsius (110 degrees Fahrenheit). Politics in Algeria. Elected politicians have relatively little sway over Algeria. Instead, a group of unelected civilian and military deciders, known as le pouvoir, the power, actually rule the country, even deciding who should be president. The most powerful man may be Mohammed Madine, the head of military intelligence. In recent years, many of these generals have died or retired. After the death of General Larbi Belcaire, Bouteflika put loyalists in key posts, notably at Sonatrach, and secured constitutional amendments that make him re-electable indefinitely. The head of state is the President of Algeria, who is elected for a 5-year term. The president was formerly limited to 2 5-year terms, but a constitutional amendment passed by the parliament on the 11th of November 2008 removed this limitation. The next presidential election was planned to be in April 2019, but widespread protests erupted on the 22nd of February against the president's decision to participate in the election, which resulted in President Bouteflika announcing his resignation on the 3rd of April. Algeria has universal suffrage at 18 years of age. The president is the head of the army, the Council of Ministers and the High Security Council. He appoints the prime minister, who is also the head of government. The Algerian parliament is bicameral. The lower house, the People's National Assembly, has 462 members who are directly elected for 5-year terms, while the upper house, the Council of the Nation, has 144 members serving 6-year terms, of which 96 members are chosen by local assemblies and 48 are appointed by the president. According to the Constitution, no political association may be formed if it is based on differences in religion, language, race, gender, profession, or region. In addition, political campaigns must be exempt from the aforementioned subjects. Parliamentary elections were last held in May 2012 and were judged to be largely free by international monitors, though local groups alleged fraud and irregularities. In the elections, the FLN won 221 seats, the military-backed National Rally for Democracy won 70, and the Islamist Green Algeria Alliance won 47. Military in Algeria. The military of Algeria consists of the People's National Army (ANP), the Algerian National Navy (MRA), and the Algerian Air Force (QJJ), plus the Territorial Air Defense Forces. It is the direct successor of the National Liberation Army (Armée de Libération Nationale or ALN), the armed wing of the nationalist National Liberation Front which fought French colonial occupation during the Algerian War of Independence 1954–62. Total military personnel include 147,000 active, 150,000 reserve, and 187,000 paramilitary staff 2008 estimate. Service in the military is compulsory for men aged 19 to 30, for a total of 12 months. The military expenditure was 4.3% of the gross domestic product (GDP) in 2012. Algeria has the second largest military in North Africa with the largest defense budget in Africa, $10 billion. Most of Algeria's weapons are imported from Russia, with whom they are a close ally. In 2007, the Algerian Air Force signed a deal with Russia to purchase 49 MiG-29 SMT and 6 MiG-29 UBT at an estimated cost of $1.9 billion. Russia is also building 2 636 Type diesel submarines for Algeria. Human rights in Algeria. Algeria has been categorized by Freedom House as not free since it began publishing such ratings in 1972, with the exception of 1989, 1990, and 1991, when the country was labeled partly free. In December 2016, the Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor issued a report regarding a violation of media freedom in Algeria. It clarified that the Algerian government imposed restriction on freedom of the press, expression, and right to peaceful demonstration, protest, and assembly, as well as intensified censorship of the media and websites. Due to the fact that the journalists and activists criticize the ruling government, some media organizations' licenses are cancelled. Independent and autonomous trade unions face routine harassment from the government, with many leaders imprisoned and protests suppressed. In 2016, a number of unions, many of which were involved in the 2010 to 2012 Algerian protests, have been deregistered by the government. Homosexuality is illegal in Algeria. Public homosexual behavior is punishable by up to 2 years in prison. Tourist places in Algeria. The development of the tourism sector in Algeria had previously been hampered by a lack of facilities, but since 2004 a broad tourism development strategy has been implemented, resulting in many hotels of a high modern standard being built. There are several UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Algeria, including Al-Khal, and of Beni Hammad, the first capital of the Hammadi Empire, Tipasa, a Phoenician and later Roman town, and Gemila and Timgad, both Roman ruins, Mazab Valley, a limestone valley containing a large urbanized oasis, and the Kasbah of Algiers, an important citadel. The only natural World Heritage Site is the Tassili Niger, a mountain range. Languages in Algeria. Modern Standard Arabic and Berber are the official languages. Algerian Arabic Darja is the language used by the majority of the population. Colloquial Algerian Arabic is heavily infused with borrowings from French and Berber. Berber has been recognized as a national language by the constitutional amendment of 8 May 2002. Kabyle, the predominant Berber language, is taught and is partially co-official, with a few restrictions, in parts of Kabylie. In February 2016, the Algerian constitution passed a resolution that would make Berber an official language alongside Arabic. Although French has no official status, Algeria is the second largest francophone country in the world in terms of speakers, and French is widely used in government, media, newspapers, radio, local television, and both the education system from primary school onwards, and academia due to Algeria's colonial history. It can be regarded as a lingua franca of Algeria. In 2008, 11.2 million Algerians could read and write in French. An Abassa Institute study in April 2000 found that 60% of households could speak and understand French, or 18 million in a population of 30 million then. After an earlier period during which the Algerian government tried to phase out French, which is why it has no official status, in recent decades the government has backtracked and reinforced the study of French, and television programs have reinforced the use of the language. Algeria emerged as a bilingual state after 1962. Colloquial Algerian Arabic is spoken by about 72% of the population and Berber by 27 to 30%. Culture in Algeria. Modern Algerian literature, split between Arabic, Tamazight, and French, has been strongly influenced by the country's recent history. Famous novelists of the 20th century include Mohammed Dib, Albert Camus, Kateb Yassine, and Alam Mostaghanemi, while Assia Jaber is widely translated. Among the important novelists of the 1980s were Rachid Mamoni, later vice president of Amnesty International, and Tahar Jout, murdered by an Islamist group in 1993 for his secularist views. Malek Benabi and Frantz Fanon are noted for their thoughts on decolonization. Augustine of Hippo was born in Tagaste, modern-day Souk Aris, and Ibn Khaldun, though born in Tunis, wrote the Muqaddimah while staying in Algeria. The works of the Sanusi family in pre-colonial times, and of Emir Abdelkader and Sheikh Ben Badis in colonial times, are widely noted. The Latin author Apuleius was born in Madoris, Darich, in what later became Algeria. Contemporary Algerian cinema is various in terms of genre, exploring a wider range of themes and issues. There has been a transition from cinema that focused on the War of Independence to films more concerned with the everyday lives of Algerians. Sports in Algeria. Various games have existed in Algeria since antiquity. In the Ars, people played several games such as El Kerba or El Kergeba chess variant. Playing cards, checkers and chess games are part of Algerian culture. Racing, fantasia and rifle shooting are part of the cultural recreation of the Algerians. The first Algerian and African gold medalist is Bouguera El Wafi in the 1928 Olympics of Amsterdam in the marathon. The second Algerian medalist was Alain Mimoun in the 1956 Summer Olympics in Melbourne. Several men and women were champions in athletics in the 1990s, including Noureddine Morcelli, Hassiba Boulmerka, Nouria Mera Benita, and Tawfik Makhloufi, all specialized in middle distance running. Football is the most popular sport in Algeria. Several names are engraved in the history of the sport, including Lakhdar Balomi, Rachid Makhloufi, Hassan Lalmas, Rabah Madjer, Salah Assad and Jamel Zidane. The Algeria national football team qualified for the 1982 FIFA World Cup, 1986 FIFA World Cup, 2010 FIFA World Cup, and 2014 FIFA World Cup. In addition, several football clubs have won continental and international trophies as the club S. Sedif or JS Kabylia. The Algerian Football Federation is an association of Algeria football clubs organizing national competitions and international matches of the selection of the Algeria national football team. Thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, click on like button. If you want to watch more videos like this, click on the subscription button below. It's free subscription.